Hey guys, this is DFD, aka Dark Frozen Devs, back with another Kamihime Project video. Now, before I get into this video, I do have to point out some things. At the time of this video, not everything is on the global side, but it is still on the Japanese side though, so this is more like getting released just even for like some future stuff coming up, because unless they change something later down the line, like say 7th anniversary or something, then all this info should still hold. But for global side, it definitely will hold for quite a while, so keep that in mind. I will point out the different stuff between global and JP side though as we get along to it. And then also I'm going to cover some of the weapons in the game because they're specific to these souls, so whenever that happens, I will cover that as well. So keep that in mind. But anyways, this is a video on basically the souls in the game because there is quite a lot of them to go through, and it can get a little bit confusing on who you want to use and whatnot. And then on top of that too, it also depends on like they on different unlock routes and all that as well. Like for example, you need two specific C class to unlock a B class. You need two specific B class to unlock an A class. You need one specific A class to unlock part of the S class, because the other part of the S class needs two of the old parts in order to do it. So it can get confusing, but I will point out who does what. Now, there are two very specific things that you also want to pay attention to with these souls as well. First off, there's a bonus they give where you max out their level. It will give a permanent like stat increase in some direction. This is the one reason why you pretty much want to unlock every soul you can, because it will buff out the entire group. However, once you hit that max level, starting from like A class onward, you can start getting mastery points. These mastery points are shared, but generally it will power up that specific soul when you use mastery points on them. They can be called MP for short. So that's something to know. And the last thing I need to mention before I even start this too is the fact that it does take specific like materials in order to unlock some of these souls, and it can get pretty grindy, so keep that in mind. Now, starting off with the ones that everybody's pretty much going to get first, the C class, because you start off with one right here, Lancelot, and I'm going to go into what she has. Now, she's basically an offensive type of soul, so go figure. But there is some things in her stuff that you may want to actually pay attention to for later. Now, they don't get too many abilities in the C class, so that's a bit unfortunate, but the interesting thing is the fact that the skills that you get from level ups, you can use on other characters, so keep that in mind. Now, when it comes to Lancelot's kit, her first skill is a 15% defense down debuff. Not bad for starting off the game because it lowers the enemy's defense and generally ups your damage. Something else that ups your damage is her second ability that she gets at level 10, which basically gives you an attack power boost, which is assault basically. So if you know your multiplier frames and all that, you're getting more assault from this buff. Now she also gives 1% assault as a master bonus, meaning that once she's maxed out, like max level, she will give that bonus and it will carry across every soul. It doesn't matter if you pick, and I'm jumping ahead on some of the names here, it doesn't matter if you pick Vivian, it doesn't matter if you pick Mordred, they'll all get that 1% attack power, so it's basically 1% more assault. But as you level her up, she gets specific bonuses unique to her, which is generally just more base attack. So that's something else to know. But you can set this chivalry ability as an EX skill, and until you start getting some better stuff, it's actually not bad to have, so your other souls can actually buff. So that's something to know. Now, this next one you're probably going to unlock as well. Like, you're probably going to unlock all of the C and that B class anyways. But going into this soul, Oliver tends to lean into defense. So that's why she's getting you like raw defense boosts every time she levels up. And then her master bonus is 1% more defense to every other soul, basically. Now, this is where you may or may not want her second ability, so remember that. But her first ability is a 30% damage reduction that is also raid wide, and that's the other thing I need to mention too. Some of these are raid wide. That assault buff, I do believe is raid wide from Lancelot. This ability right here is a raid wide damage cut, so whenever she uses it, everybody in the raid gets it. Like, everybody, all their characters. So, that's something to know. Now, as for the second ability that she gets, is level 5. Reduces all the damage received one time. I think that's to herself. But, I do know it's a very good one to have if you can redirect all the damage to yourself. So, she has that at least. It is a very, very good skill to have if you can time it like correctly. So, you do want to have that one. But basically you're going to use her in order to like unlock others later down the line though. She's not bad for defense starting off, but you got better ones coming along the way. Now, this is one that a lot of people will definitely get because she has some very good skills. But Vivian, first off, when she levels up, she'll start gaining more base HP and then also more recovery power, which is basically like Ascension, but for her. And then her master bonus also gives another heal increase, which is basically Ascension for all the souls this time. But as it's implied, she's a healer. The healing isn't all that great, but that's not the main reason why you want to level her up, because you'll get better healers anyways, even among the souls. But the heal is kind of small. I do believe it's only like, yeah, 750. So if you use that free version of Nikkei that you get, SR Nikkei, right out the gate, she heals about as much as Vivian. So that's a good indicator of how much health they can get back. Now, the healing can be increased even further when you have Ascension and all that type of stuff. So that 750 will get stronger. So keep that in mind. It's like you can push it up to, I do believe it's like 2,250. But that's honestly not that much once you start getting a lot stronger. So keep that in mind. The main reason why you want to absolutely make sure you level this soul up is her second ability, Maiden's Prayer. This is one of those abilities that you'll probably set on other souls because it removes one debuff from all participants in the raid, and it is a very, very good skill to have. So if your soul happens to need anything to remove some debuffs, there you go. Also, the healing works on everybody in the raid as well, so that's another thing to know. But again, there's better healers. Now, Merlin, I would argue that she actually would be one of the first ones you probably should try to get, because ability damage is actually pretty good early on, and once you get into some late game setups with some stuff that happens later on, it can also be very strong that way as well. But her main thing is just ability damage, parry point blank. That's why it's her level up bonus. That's why it's her master bonus. But how she does ability damage is two different things. The first skill, she'll deal fire and water damage to a single enemy, and this is regardless of whatever element she uses. So if you put a thunder weapon on her, she's still doing fire and water. What makes it different is the fact that if you have something called like Stinger, which is basically like a back attack type of thing or whatever, if you have a skill effect or a buff or anything that gives you Stinger, then that fire and water damage can still do sting damage, even if it hits. Like, it doesn't matter who it hits as long as you have elemental advantage for her weapon. So it might sound a little bit confusing, but the gist with that is that, like, let's take our previous example, the thunder weapon. If you put a thunder weapon on her, water enemies will still take stinger damage from that first skill, regardless of whatever element hits them. So that's something to know. Now, the second ability, it basically buffs everybody's ability damage even throughout the raid. It's not a bad buff, but there's still better ones, but it still depends on who's doing what. So that's something to know. Like this version of her, like this version of the ability damage souls isn't all that great, but she leads into better ones, and that's why I say you're probably going to want to unlock her. Now then, Beowulf is the first time you start getting some really situational ones. First off, her level up bonus is gauge suppression, which means that she's going to increase the amount of rage bar she takes down as she levels up, and then she gets a permanent one as well for a master. But her main gimmick, if an enemy is stunned or an enemy is raging, she's going to increase the damage she does. So you have to pay specific attention to the different modes. Her initial skill that you can't share is when she deals extra stun damage. This is in a frame called Punish Frame, which is basically the name that the community goes by. It is another multiplier and can actually be pretty powerful. So if an enemy is stunned, you can pull this off and deal a lot of damage with her. It's not something like seriously overpowered, but it is strong. Now, the second ability, she deals extra damage if the enemy's raging. If it's not raging, she's dealing like a 1 times multiplier, but if it is raging, she can do anywhere between a 2 to 3 times multiplier. So that ability is stronger when the enemy's raging. She also gains an assist ability that buffs her her attack power, basically her assault, when the enemy's raging as well. So that's something to pay attention to. This is the first soul where you probably have some very, very situational stuff. But again, C class is just there in order to get to the stronger ones. Now then, the next one, Van Helsing. If an enemy's got debuffs on them, then she's going to start dealing extra damage. But her main thing is the master bonus, where you get some debuff resistance for your souls, which can and can't help you. It all depends, but it's still welcome. Now, her abilities tend to not be used that much, but they are still helpful, at least early on. Now, her first ability, she'll put blind on an enemy while dealing damage. Blind can help enemies miss you when they're trying to do normal attacks. Depending on the fight, it can be very helpful, but it's not that good compared to the other ones, because stronger versions of this type of soul will end up being like multiple debuffs at once, so keep that in mind. Her second ability is it nullifies 1 debuff on herself, meaning the next time a debuff tries to land on her, it's going to get blocked. This is the first time you'll see that type of stuff, but it's not raid wide, it's not team wide, it's just to herself. That's the issue with that one. So again, another soul where it's basically just there until you get better. Now this soul is actually a bit helpful until you get stronger stuff. But what she does, first off, as she levels up, her chances of landing her trademark snatch ability, which ups the drop rate of stuff, that gets stronger whenever she levels up. She also gains some HP when she levels up, and she also has a master bonus of HP, so that's something to know. But generally, when it comes to her ability kit, her first ability is going to basically like buff up herself, her own assault and defense, while also healing her. The second ability is where you're probably going to actually have some use, because it's not that much stacks of snatch, but it'll put like 1 stack, I do believe, on enemies, and that drop rate increases permanent throughout their entire fight. And it also helps other people in the raid as well. But you're going to get stronger ones, but it still helps you out, because what drop rate will do is increase the chances of chests appearing. So if there's a chance of a bronze chest appearing, it just got higher with that ability. But it won't affect what's in the chest. So it's like, if a bronze chest can drop, say, gems or a normal rarity weapon, it's not going to up any of the rates of those happening. It's just going to up the rates of that chest appearing. So it won't up a specific thing, it just ups the chest rate, period. But it is quite useful for certain things in the game, so that's something to know. You will get better ones though, but she's definitely one of the first souls that can help you out with basically grinding. Now Spartacus. This one, another offensive soul, but she's more like self-focused. So that's the main thing with her. She gains more base attack and base HP as she gets stronger, and then the master bonus is more attack power. And remember, anytime it says attack, it's actually assault. But her main thing, her second ability is to up her own attack power, defense, and her combo rate. Could be useful in other souls depending on who it is, but you may or may not use it. Her first ability, however, she'll deal damage based on the number of buffs she has. Can do quite a bit of damage if you get a lot of buffs on her, so she might be one of the first souls that can actually just like nuke out an enemy and take out a good chunk of their health. So that's something to know for this character. Now these next two, they're a little bit different in the fact that on the global versions, we have two separate types of soul points in order to unlock souls. There's the normal ones, and then there's the special ones. These two take special soul points, which is the blue ones. Later on in 6th anniversary, these things merge. So if 6th anniversary has already happened, ignore the fact that there's blue soul points. But you do need the blue ones in order to unlock these two until then. Starting off with Crowley. Now, she gets some debuff resistance and some defense as she levels up, and defense is a master bonus. But her main thing is basically trying to up normal attack damage. Now, her second ability also can buff attack and defense to one character and give them some healing. So if you need some single target healing, this isn't too bad. But there's better later down the line, of course. Same thing goes for this first ability, which is giving Rampage to an ally. Rampage prevents that character from doing bursts, and it prevents them from using abilities, but it spikes their normal attack damage because it gives them a very good boost to their normal attack multiplier. So her main thing is to up somebody's normal attack damage, basically. It's not that great, but it may or may not help you. But again, she's another case of get her in order to get stronger ones. Because like I said, all of them are. Now, Yukimura, this is the first one that you see that's kind of burst focused, but anyways, as she gets stronger, more base attack, and then her double attack rate increases. Double attack is, if you want to be honest, double attack isn't that good because you want to triple attack more, but if you can't get either one, then still having some more double attack is at least helpful. But the main thing for her is just again, build up to other stuff. Now, her master bonus is more HP, surprisingly, so it's not something offensive. But her skills, she deals elemental damage based on her weapon, and then increases her own burst gauge. And then her second ability will send her burst gauge to another ally. So if somebody's falling behind, this could actually help them out with the burst cycles, because that tends to happen sometimes. Like say she's already at 100 and you know you got this ability back, you can use her second ability and then use her first one. And kind of keep up the pacing with that. Because generally when it comes to burst, you want the whole team to do it at once. But basically that's what this helps you out on. But it's your first start into getting into like burst gauges like pretty seriously. But anyways, that's all the C class, and again, they're all mainly just there in order to get to the next set of souls. So now I actually have to take a little bit longer because I have to point out who unlocks what. So that's something to know. All of the B class need 2 of the C class in order to unlock. So keep that in mind. And again, some of them do need the blue points until the soul point merge happens. So remember that. Now Gawain, she's like the stronger Lancelot. And she's probably going to be one of the ones that you definitely start using a lot of the EX skills from, because of what she has in there. But more base attack, of course. attack bonus when she's max level to all souls. You need Lancelot and Van Helsing in order to unlock her. So keep that in mind. And I'm not mentioning the soul point requirements because of the simple fact that that's something that's just going to commonly pop up. So there you go. But anyways, Gawain, her first ability, 2 to 3 times damage to one single enemy. It's not too bad for an attacking skill at this part of the game because you'll probably get a B class soul pretty early on. But it's there. Now, these two abilities you may or may not use depending on who you're fighting or what your characters have. So that's something to know. But her second ability, which she gets at level 5, it's a stronger version of that attack power boost that Lancelot had. Only this time, you can share it with the other souls. So, if you say you have Vivian, you could put this on Vivian, for example. But, her third ability, because souls finally got 3 abilities naturally, she puts a defense down debuff on an enemy while dealing damage. This one is probably going to be one that you're going to use. It's called Dark Raid for some reason on this translation. It's actually Ambush, but this ability you're probably going to use on other souls, depending on what you have on your team, because this is going to give them more access to debuffing as well. Defense down debuffs are one of your best ways of increasing damage, because it's just going to lower enemy defense and just give you basically better damage off of multipliers and the damage formula. It's long story short, you're going to want to have some defense down. If you know how the debuff frames work, this is 20% to A frame. You might get your 50% defense down. So, there you go. But her main thing is basically just more offense, but like she buffs and debuffs this time. And also has her own little damage skill, but the damage skill is just basically there. She's more of a support role if you ask me. Now then, Roland is another defense one. So naturally, she's going to get more defense as she levels up. She's going to give a permanent defense boost. This is what I mean by the stronger damage cuts, because it's already getting stronger. It's a 35% damage cut. So you basically take 35% less damage. That goes to the entire raid. What also helps is that she gives a regen to your characters as well, which is up to 200 per tick. But it also can be affected by Ascension, which means the healer souls that gave you the healing bonus will make this a little bit stronger. So it can go roughly up to 600 per turn. So it can help keep you alive a little bit better, but it's nice, but there's better ones. And then this is the first time you get an ability where the soul can actually like redirect all the damage to themselves, because there's another one that can do it too. And that's what this third ability is. It will have her step in front, and as long as it's not an attack that will hit the entire team at once, she will take the damage for it, and nobody else will. So if it's like random hits or single targets, she will take the brunt of the damage instead. Now, the main reason why you probably would want to use this is because the souls tend to have higher HP than Kamihime, and she's already getting natural defense, which means she's going to take less damage off of that. If you combine this with the damage cut, she can actually be pretty protective of the party depending on the fight. So, that said, you may want to end up using her if you're struggling with some fights. You need Oliver and Beowulf in order to unlock her. So, remember that. Now then, Cassiopeia is another one where you might actually end up using some of her abilities on other souls. Same thing as before for Vivian. It's like better at recovering and get more natural HP as she gets stronger. Everybody gets better at recovering for her master bonus. And then on top of that too, Vivian and Oliver is needed to unlock her. But her first ability, it's I do believe it's 1,000 HP? No, it's 1,200. Yeah, it says 1,200 right here. So she'll heal 1,200 HP to the entire raid, basically. So that's up to 3,600, which is pretty substantial at this point. But again, they're still better. She also gives a defense buff, and that's also raid wide. So that said, you may end up using this. It depends on the souls you have or whatnot. But there's still a stronger version of it later on. Her third ability, though, is the one you're probably going to use, and it's called Chaos Magic. This will remove a buff off an enemy. Most buffs are raid wide when it comes to enemies getting them, but sometimes they're specific to the player. But the main thing is the fact that you want to keep buffs off of enemies if you can, because some of them can get very, very threatening when they're buffed up. And the big thing with that is that this will just flat out remove one of them. It's a very useful ability, so remember that one. But her main role is still a healer, and she can also just remove a buff while she's healing. So there you go. And up your defense as well. Now then, Rosencruz is where you really start seeing ability damage probably take off a bit. So here you go for that one. So of course, her whole level up thing is ability damage, period, point blank. You need Merlin and Lancelot to unlock her. And her main thing is to pretty much just deal ability damage, period. Now, she has two forms of dealing it, unlike the first one. Her first ability, instead of just fire and water, she now adds wind and lightning damage. And again, it doesn't matter what element smacks an enemy, it can always have that stinger effect if she has an elemental advantage weapon. So if you had something like a light or a dark weapon, then it wouldn't matter as long as you still have elemental advantage. Now, the second ability, this is another ability damage buff for the entire raid, and it is stronger than the previous one. So it's going to give a noticeable increase, but it's still not the main bulk of her kit. And then the third ability, she will deal 2 times damage to all enemies, so it's like a 2 times multiplier for ability damage to every single enemy. So that said, she's got an AoE nuke basically. And this is probably the first time you'll be using ability damage to pretty much just kill off a lot of stuff at once. If you are doing like the caves where you get like the fangs and all that type of stuff, she can be pretty good for killing off some enemies there. So this is like the first time you may actually start using ability damage pretty seriously. But again, there's still better. Because if you're not S-class, there's better. Now, Gilgamesh, this is another one like Beowulf, where you basically had to pay attention to enemies and all that, like if they're raging or not. So again, her level up thing is if an enemy's in like raging, she'll help take the meter down faster. And there's a special ability that she has for that too, and I want to point that out. But anyways, you need Beowulf and Billy the Kid in order to unlock her. Now, her first ability is just like Beowulf, but stronger. So if an enemy's stunned, she's going to start dishing out quite a bit of damage with that one. Now, if an enemy's raging, it's now a 3 to 4 times multiplier. Otherwise, it's going to be 1 times. But the second ability is the one I want to point out, because this will decrease the mode gauge of an enemy. What that means is if they're raging, the bar directly gets drained. And it's a percentage based on how much raging bar they have left. So it's stronger the earlier you use it when they're in rage mode. The reason I want to point this out is because of the fact that this is one of those skills that you don't think you would use, but you probably should in some fights. One of my suggestions is using it in the Och raid. Because the thing is, you want to get that raging bar drained. If anybody's struggling with the full Guardian raid, this is an ability to put on your soul. Because it will take out that rage bar pretty quickly. Like, you just use it and then you got like, I think it's close to 30% rage bar drain. So that's something to know. Well, no, it's 20%, but it's still a lot in one go. Because you may not even have the damage to knock out 20% in one shot. So, and keep in mind, too, that the rage bar is shared between the entire raid group, too. So if multiple people are using this, it's just going to drain the gauge like crazy. But, this is one of those situational type of things. If there's a fight where an enemy's really focused on raging, this can help save your life. so don't underestimate it. I'm not saying to keep it on at all times, but it is something that you may want to consider if you're struggling whenever an enemy is raging. So that's something to know. Just don't forget this skill exists. A lot of people do for some reason, and I keep telling them that. Now, Asmund is basically another debuffing type of soul, so when she levels up, she starts dealing more damage to enemies with debuffs. She also gives you debuff resistance when she's maxed out. Van Helsing and Merlin is needed for unlocking her. But she also has an ability that you may or may not use. Now, her first ability, instead of just doing the blind, she now adds poison. And it says illusion. I think that's a dizzy effect, if I remember correctly from the translations. But this is a stronger debuff. Basically, you're going to just throw like 3 of them at an enemy. So keep that in mind. The poison's not all that strong though, so don't rely on it. But the other two are definitely worth it. Now, the second ability, for a certain amount of turns, she's just going to give the entire team, not the entire raid, but she's going to give the entire team some debuff resistance. This is your first time seeing a skill that ups your resistance, but doesn't flat out block the debuffs. But it is pretty useful when used properly. Now, the interesting thing that people tend to overlook with this type of stuff is that debuff resistance can stack with elemental like resistance as well. So say you're in a fire, up against a fire enemy, if you have fire resistance and debuff resistance, that is 2 sources of decreasing the chances you get debuffed. And it also helps if you have fire attack on the enemy as well, to lower the chances of getting debuffed as well. So that's basically like 3 sources of reducing your chances of getting debuffed. So this is another one of those things where you may or may not want to pay attention. So keep that in mind if you happen to get debuffed a lot and it gets annoying. Now, the third ability, she's going to do an AoE hit. I think it's like a 1x multiplier, I do believe. But the big thing about this is that it debuffs the enemy's combo rate. This is an ability to put on your souls if the enemy's like comboing a lot, and you have no sources of debuffing your combo rate. So that's something to know. Believe it or not, this skill actually would be a little bit helpful in one of the late game raids, which is the Fire Malicious raid, because it likes doing a lot of normal attacks. So you can lower that combo rate a little bit just by doing this. And then on top of that too, she also has that blind debuff as well too, so it may actually help you out on that one as well. But I don't think you're going to use Asmund for the blind. But anyways, the next one, Granuel, and this is another one of those ones that have that drop rate type of setup. So when you level her up, base HP goes up, her chances of landing drop rate increase, I should say, is going to get better. When you max her out, every soul gets more HP basically. But you need Vivian and you need Billy the Kid to unlock her. She has a stronger version of that one self skill where it like gives her some HP back and then some attack and defense up. So she has a stronger version of that. She has a stronger version of that snatch ability too, where if you use it, it tries to land 2 stacks instead of 1. But the third ability is the first time you might actually end up using a debuff like this as well, which is an attack and defense down debuff to all enemies. And it is B frame instead of A frame. They didn't list it here. So that said, if you say you have Gawain but want to use this ability, then you have to unlock Granuel, get that, and then put it on Gawain, and you basically got like, I do believe 30 or 35% defense down just off of all of that. So that's something to know about how debuffing works. The only downside is that the fact that this ability doesn't deal damage, but it's still helpful. And then on top of that too, if you use that snatch ability from the first soul that had it, which is Billy the Kid, then you basically got 3 stacks right there. So that's something else to keep in mind. That's something important later on. So, and then there's Achilles, another offensive type of soul, but she's not like self-buffing and all that too, like Spartacus was. But base stats go up as she levels up, and then on top of that too, master bonus of attack power. You need Merlin and Spartacus to unlock her. Now, this first ability is a stronger version of what Spartacus had, where deal some pretty serious damage if you have a lot of buffs on her. But she can also put a lot more buffs on herself this time around, because first skill will increase her attack power, her combo rate, and her ability damage, which is like, I think, a total of 5 buffs. And then she can up her defense and give herself an energy drain for the second ability, which gives her like roughly 7 buffs, I do believe. So, that said, she can put a lot of self buffs on herself in order to get that first ability to deal some damage. And again, it could be a decent boss killer if you're struggling. So that's something to know. Now, going a little bit further, we have Cagliostro. And again, another one of those souls that's up in your normal attacks. But for some reason, she gives you debuff resistance and defense when she levels up. And then her master bonus is giving all the souls defense. So there you go. You need Vivian and Crawley in order to unlock her. Now, this Rampage for her first skill is stronger than the previous one from Crawley, so keep that in mind. It's going to give a bigger increase to the normal attack damage. Her second ability, she can give a better HP recovery, attack, and defense up to one character, so that's something to know. Third ability is the first time you start seeing this type of stuff. It's not a combo rate increase, it's just a flat-out guarantee that a character is going to combo. Meaning they have a chance to either double attack or triple attack whenever you use that third skill on somebody. So basically there is no single attack while they're under that effect, which can help out quite a bit when you combine the Rampage. So that's when you start needing to pay attention to who you put the Rampage on, because you can put that guaranteed double and deal a surprising amount of damage, honestly. But again, it's nothing too crazy because they're still better later down the line. Now then, the last one, Masamune. And keep in mind, Crawley and Masamune still need the blue souls if that's still in the game. So if they haven't combined soul points, you need the special soul points, the blue one. But you need Beowulf and Yukimura to unlock Masamune. And it's the same thing as the Yukimura's stuff, basically, when it comes to leveling. It's like more attack power, more double attack chance, and then on top of that, the master bonus is HP. And the kid is reflective of that as well. She will increase her own burst gauge and deal some damage when she uses her first ability. I do believe it's a stronger amount of damage and a little bit more burst gauge. I think it's like 25 burst gauge. But this time, when she uses that ability that gives some her burst gauge to others, it's going to spread out to all the allies on her team. So the entire team, except for her, is going to get more burst gauge based on the burst gauge she gives out. I think she can basically sacrifice, I think, up to 50 in order to put, like, I think 10 or 15 to everybody. It depends. But yeah, she'll give 10 back to herself, but it's really just distributing like 40 to the rest of the team. So they all get 10, but she'll drop to 60 basically. So that's what that will do. And it is 25 for the first ability. Now, the second one is going to increase the combo rate, which is the chance of double attack and triple attack is going to increase your combo rate generally for that third ability. I think it's only one character though. It may be two in the entire team, but I think it was only one character. It's not entirely listed here, and then there's better ones later down the line anyway that affect the whole team. So again, it's there. You may use that burst gauge distributing thing depending on the soul you have though. So that's something to know. Now then, that was all of the B class. Now the A class is where things start getting a little bit different, because first and foremost, A class has special weapons that will increase their abilities. So you will need to do raids for that. It is the ultimate catastrophe raid in order to get those weapons. You will also need those weapons to help unlock the S class as well, so remember that. But the other thing that's special about the A class is the fact that this is the first time you're going to start seeing mastery points, because there's an energy release function where you can start buffing the stats of that soul or start unlocking new abilities. So keep that in mind. The abilities unlocked for this soul is for the entire land of that soul. So like if you get, say, Arthur's mastery ability, or they call him MEX or MEX for short. If you get that, then only Arthur, Gawain, Lancelot, and Charlemagne will be able to use that. None of the other souls will. So I will point out all that type of stuff as it goes along. But this is the first time where the utility of souls greatly widens out. And you really do want to start paying attention to which A class you want to, because their respective S class is going to want them unlocked. Now, starting off with, of course, Arthur. This is the first time you're going to see a soul that actually has some pretty good utility. Like just overall good utility. First off, she gets a lot of base attack for leveling up. This is probably the first time you'll see a base attack like near double what the other characters have. But she needs Gawain and Esmond to unlock. And Arthur's mastery bonus is going to be more attack power. Now, when it comes to upgrading her stats through the mastery points and all that too, it will carry over to Charlemagne, so remember that. But when it comes to her abilities, there's quite a bit, and we're going to go over each of them. Now, first and foremost, her first ability fills up her burst gauge all the way to the max, which is 100 for her. Some characters can go to 200, but she's not one of them. What that means is that she can just use it, burst out the gate, and when you burst, it adds burst gauge to all the other characters while dealing a lot of damage to a single enemy, so keep that in mind. Speaking of which, you can also do a 3 to 4 times multiplier to a single enemy with her second ability. And that one you can put on other souls, so if you got an ability damage soul, that can also help out too. Her third ability is going to be an attack power buff to the entire raid, and it's a 20% A-frame one. So you basically got like 20% more assault. But those are what she gets from leveling up. These next three, you need mastery points to unlock. The first one, 15 mastery points, increases the chances of Stinger landing. It says sneak attack probability, that's basically Stinger. So the entire raid is getting a Stinger buff. Can be pretty powerful when it activates, but Stinger has a chance of activating, and it only works if you have elemental advantage. So if you're like using a fire character in a thunder raid, it's not going to work. Fire would have to face wind enemies in order for it to work. Thunder would have to face water enemies, and so on and so forth. Now, this third one, it says give yourself a lot. It's actually vigor, I do believe. And it is a 40% to 50% increase in vigor. So that said, it's a very, very powerful self buff. So you do want to pay attention to that one. Vigor is another multiplier. So if there's another Arthur that basically gave you the Stinger buff, then this Vigor buff is like another multiplier on top of the Assault, on top of the Elemental, and you got like 5 multipliers and all that. But this third ability, this one doesn't unlock. Like, you're not able to unlock it until 6th anniversary. But what this is, and it takes 100 MP. One time per fight, you will give 5 turns of guaranteed critical to all allies. Not the entire raid, but your entire team. Critical is basically like Stinger, only it doesn't give a crap about elemental advantage, and it's another multiplier. So you can have Stinger, you can have critical, you can have Assault, a lot of multipliers. When you start getting access to many multipliers, you can start dealing a lot of damage. But the main thing with this is the fact that it is 5 turns guaranteed critical, meaning you are going to see that multiplier go off for 5 turns. It is pretty powerful. But keep this one thing in mind, that these 3 abilities that say MP only can be used between Charlemagne, Arthur, Gawain, and Lancelot. But to be quite honest, you're probably going to want to use it on Charlemagne anyways, because she's the best one of the line. And then this is probably the first time you'll start seeing 2 assist abilities from the souls themselves. The first one, more attack power for Arthur. The second one, basically whenever you get I think it's when she's buffed or whatever, she's got more combo rate. But the main thing is these weapons right here that you really need to pay attention to. Her specific weapons, the first one is elemental attack based, and it's the Excalibur, of course. But basically it reduces the cooldown of her attack power buff. Well, no, it says Absolute Monarchy, so I think that's her ability damage 1. Yeah. It reduces the cooldown of her ability damage 1, so she'll start using it like 1 turn faster. It doesn't increase the strength of it, it just makes it more frequent to use. But her second ability, she's going to give another increase to attack power with her buff, and it's the HP weapon. Excuse me. So what that means is that instead of 20%, it's going to be a 40% increase for attack power, which is a pretty noticeable buff at that point. But you're probably not going to want to use this weapon anyways, because the elemental attack one is better, like overall better. So there you go. And then on top of that too, there's somebody that also gives a pretty sizable attack power buff as well, Charlemagne basically. But depending on what weapon you get from here determines which one you get for Charlemagne. So if you get the elemental one for Arthur, you get to unlock the elemental one for Charlemagne, and so on and so forth. Both weapons, however, have a burst effect, which is going to increase her own attack power based on the limit breaks. So she's getting yet another weapon buff on top of that. Honestly, I think this gives like Arthur up to 75% like attack buff if you combine the elemental one, HP one with this. So you could get a little bit technical, but like I said, you're probably going to use the elemental one. Now then, John is going to be one of the first times you really get into some protection for from souls, because she is pretty strong like that. Now more defense when she levels up. Master bonus is defense. You need Roland and Gilgamesh in order to unlock her. First ability is 40% A-frame, and Ace happens to say something about her weapon already, but I'll get to that when it happens. But it's 40% A-frame damage cut for the entire raid when she uses her first ability. One of her weapons will increase it though. Now, the second ability, it has a regen, which is a better regen than the previous one, but it also gives a chance of double attack increase to the entire team. So you're getting some health back and some more combo rate basically. It's not that good, but it's also still pretty welcome if you want some extra recovery and combo rate. So there you go. But the third ability, you may want to use this on other souls depending on who does what. But this third ability will give an A-frame attack down to an enemy. And that's pretty big considering the fact that when you started doing attack down on enemies, they start dealing way less damage. So that's something to know. Then on top of that too, you may or may not even use all three of these. It all depends. But the first mastery ability, 15 MP to unlock, cuts all damage to a single ally one time. This I tend to use for the Wind Militia's raid, because I have a character that can cover for the entire team, on top of Romulus, who can also use this ability. And I use this on whoever's doing that cover, because it's just going to make them not take any damage, period, point blank. It is strong when used properly, so keep that in mind. And to clarify, that Wind Militia's raid can hit you for like up to like, I do believe 8 or 9 hits of like 30k each. if you're really, really not careful. This just flat out negates all of that damage period point blank, no matter how much she does. So there you go. Now the second ability I also use sometimes too. It's also pretty good for those that like doing auto battle, in my opinion. This second MP ability is going to start stacking defense buffs on all the allies, and if you have another character that can do it, it will stack with them as well because it's in stacking frame. So what that means is that it's going to just constantly start building up and building up and building up, but each stack only lasts for like 30 turns. So it does take a while for it to go down, but it's just more defense, more permanent defense for the whole thing if you can keep it going. The third ability, this one is going to give a massive defense increase to all allies for like 10 turns, but the thing is, I think it was only like 60%. So it's not too crazy compared to some of the stuff that other characters can get. Like some of the Kamihime can literally get like 100. But that's the thing. Like this, I don't think it's worth the 100 MP, but it is also there in case you want it. But it's only going to last for 10 turns and it's only usable once per fight. So that's something to know. But going into her weapons, whenever she bursts, she will give herself a damage protection for that entire turn. So stacking this with the other damage cut, she can basically negate most, if not all, the damage. So there you go. But it's only for the turn she bursts in, so you want to use that, you got to time it properly. Now for the elemental weapon, it's going to basically reduce the cooldown of her region and combo attack buff. So generally you're going to start using that a lot more often. If you use that, it's going to have like half uptime basically at that point. But the elemental weapon is, a lot of people say get the elemental weapon because of the multiplier increase. I would beg to differ in the case of this soul line, because the HP weapon is probably better, especially for Romulus. But it's all up to you on which one you want to use. But the HP weapon will increase the cut ability, which means that 40% cut just became 60%. And when she bursts with a maxed out weapon, Joan is going to just ignore all damage for that one turn. So again, I would argue that the HP weapon is better, especially when it translates into Romulus's. But again, it's up to you on which one you want to use. Both of them can work. And now then, we have Andromeda. This is one of the first times you're really going to take healing seriously, because healing is pretty good at this point forward from the souls that really focus on it. So, again, level up bonus is going to give her more healing and more base HP. Master bonus is going to give the entire soul list of more healing. You need Cassiopeia, of course, but you also need Rollin to unlock her. Now, first ability, Tower Raid, 1600 HP recovered. It can go up depending on your ascension and all of that. So I do believe it's up to 4,800 if you increase that all up there. Then on top of that, her second ability, she got a defense buff that puts on the whole raid. So there you go. You may or may not use this ability on other souls, but it's there. But the third ability is one that you may use on other souls. It all depends. But it will revive one dead ally off your team. So if one ally is dead, it will bring them back. So it will just flat out bring them back. I think it's only half HP though. But the first MP ability, you may end up using this as well. So that's something to know. It is 15 points in order to learn, and you will end up having a flat out debuff nullification for the entire team. One raid that comes to mind, and eventually it will be solo content, is the Atlas raid, which is the harder Titan raid. You have to have an ability like this in order to survive its doom, because the doom will go off immediately. You won't get time to clear it off you. You have to either avoid getting it or you have to revive. This will help out for that. So something to remember for that. It also helps any other fight where you get debuffed a lot too. I mean, it can also help for Dark Malicious as well, which is another late game type of raid. But most of the dark content in the game is going to debuff you, so there you go for this. As for the second ability you can learn from MP, you probably won't use it. But what it does is give somebody Indomitable. For anybody that played like the Kingdom Hearts series and have like Second Chance and Once More, that's basically what this is. Like that character's just not gonna die from the next hit they take. It's basically Second Chance. So it won't matter if they take 1 million, 10 million, 15 million damage. I'm going some real extreme numbers, but some fights have done that before. But it doesn't matter if they take that much damage. Whoever has Indomitable is just not going to die from that one hit. For enemies, it just flat out prevents them from dying that entire turn. But so what this will do is just keep them at 1 HP. It won't heal them, it won't revive them, it will just keep them alive at 1 HP. And until it goes away, they're just not going to die. And this is also pretty important for another soul later down the line. So that soul that also gets Indomitable, you're going to want to pay attention to that one because it's pretty crazy. But this ability itself, you're probably not going to use. The third ability you most definitely will use if you want to keep any of your healing souls. It's going to be 100 MP, so again, 6th anniversary is when you can start getting it. But grants the entire team 1 automatic revival per fight. And it lasts until they use it. So that revive is just going to go off instantly. So you basically can give somebody auto revive. And it is very, very strong because of the fact that the entire team is just going to get that. So if you have, like, say, five characters on the team still alive and you use this automatic revival and the enemy nukes off 2 of them, they're just going to come back and the other 3 still keep their auto revive. So pretty powerful. So if you're going to use a healing soul, definitely break out this one. But as for the weapons, again, this is another case of where you may or may not take the HP one over the attack one. But it all depends on what you want to do with the next healer, which is Asclepius. But Andromeda is still pretty good as a healer. Now, when you burst with the weapon, it's just going to up her own recovery limit, so it's basically giving her free ascension for a few turns. I think it's like 3. And it's a pretty sizable amount. So there you go. Excuse me. But the thing with bursting with these healing souls, they don't get that much burst gauge on their own because their combo rate's kind of low. They don't have no methods to really fill it up, so you're reliant on other characters to really get them going. But it's there. The main bulk of this stuff is where you get a regen from the elemental weapon that's added to the healing ability, so that's just even more healing. And then the HP weapon is going to give you an extra 20% in defense, which is a very sizable amount at that point. I think 40% defense and buffs acts kind of like a 33% cut or 30% cut, somewhere along the lines of that. It's a pretty noticeable damage drop when you have defense buffs hitting like 40% and higher. So that said, it's also pretty helpful too. Either one works, but you're mainly going to focus on what will get Asclepius beefed up the way you want compared to Andromeda, because you're going to use Asclepius over Andromeda. Now then, Solomon. I recommend that most people unlock this soul because of the simple fact that it all depends on if you really want to try and invest in the normal attack stuff or not, because that can get pretty crazy and pretty easily for people starting like 6th anniversary onward. But even then, this soul is still pretty powerful in quite a few content, even today. Like, there's a Jewel Hunt event where she still has some use. So, my suggestion is to unlock Solomon. Now, you need Rosencruz and Gawain to unlock her. Ability damage is her forte. I don't need to really explain too much on the level up and the master bonus in that case. Here's what we get into with her abilities. So, now, the first ability is a 4.5 to 5 times multiplier attribute damage to one single enemy. This can easily hit, like, I do believe, like 600k. So you'll start one-shotting a lot of the easier grind content, like some of the Advent stuff and the caves where you get the fangs and all that. You will easily start one-shotting that. I think it instant kills any enemy in Epic Quest. I think it like instant kills any enemy there. So there's that. So when you start getting a lot more weapons and all that type of stuff, this can start one-shotting some of the weaker enemies. Second ability, randomly start spitting out all 6 elements of damage. Again, it doesn't matter what her weapon is. If you have elemental advantage on your weapon, the stinger will sip and still go off. So I say that because you can indeed get stinger as one of the mastery point effects. So that's one of your stat increases that you can get. That's the main reason why I keep pointing this out. So if, say, you have a fire version of Solomon fighting a wind enemy, all 6 of these hits, regardless of element, can still sting. Now, the third ability ups her own ability damage, and she can start stacking it. The more you stack it, the more powerful it gets. Pretty useful if you use it before her first ability. Her second ability, it does up all the damage of all the hits, but it's more useful for her first ability. But her first MP skill increases the ability performance of all allies. You may or may not use this, because there's a better one that's right after. The only time I can really see you using this ability is if a fight's really, really short. So yeah, there's that. But this second ability you are absolutely going to use. You are absolutely going to use, because what this is it's called Hourly Overlord, and it's another one that costs 15 MP. When she uses this, the other abilities immediately come off a cooldown. No matter how long the cooldown was, it doesn't matter if it was 1 turn, 5 turn, 20 turn, 180 million turns, it doesn't matter, it's just going to come off cooldown. So this is a very, very strong ability. It allows her to basically double cast her stuff. Definitely get this one. The third one is the one that you can probably ignore, because this mastery point ability is a bit deceptive. It does help your ability damage, but it's more suited to the abilities to do multiple hits. So if you have a team that does a lot of multiple hit abilities, that's maybe when you might want to consider this. But for 100 MP, it's basically just going to give a flat damage increase to all ability damage. That flat increase, which is called damage plus, does not care how much your damage is, does not care about soft caps, because there's that too. It's just going to be a raw damage increase. And I do believe it's like 150. But I'll scroll down a little bit later and see. But it's still a flat damage increase. So say something had a damage plus of 200,000. It don't matter how much damage you did beforehand. It could be 20, it can be 50 million. It's still an extra 20,000. Or 200,000 or whatever. That's how the damage plus works. It's just raw increase. Doesn't matter what happens. It's just raw flat increase. Now then, and she got rebalances too to start doing a lot more ability damage, so it can get kind of crazy at this point, but not like overpowered. But anyways, when she bursts with any of the weapons, it will increase her it will increase the entire team's damage for abilities, so that's another thing to know. But you're probably going to want the elemental weapon because of this one effect. Her first skill becomes AoE. So that super nuke that I said can probably one-shot some of the weaker enemies, it's going to start wiping out entire teams. That's the reason why you're probably going to want this soul, because her with her weapon, and it does look like a Keyblade too, so I can make that Kingdom Hearts reference again, but her elemental weapon is going to make that first skill AoE instead of single target, and it's very, very strong and it's very powerful. The second one, however, is basically going to shorten the cooldown of her ability that starts stacking her ability damage. So it could help out with that one, but it's still completely overshadowed by the elemental weapon. So you do want to keep that that elemental weapon. It is a Leamington key or whatever, but it looks like a freaking Keyblade. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. You will see that in game in one of the menus for the raid material trades and all that. It looks like a Keyblade. It really does. You want that Keyblade because it also carries over to Medea's weapon as well. If you are not using the elemental weapon for Solomon and Medea, you are doing it wrong. So if you have those, definitely use those. And now then, I'm going to cut this short because this video is getting long, so I'll end up doing part 2 when I get the chance. But first off, I'm going to finish off with Siegfried. So Siegfried is one of the times where you're probably going to start dealing with quite a sizable amount of damage based on the situation. But she's another one of those mode gauge ones, so yeah, her gauge reduction is just going to increase, and the master bonus is going to spread to everybody. So there you go. You need Gilgamesh, and you need Granuel to unlock her. And they're not kidding when they say this first ability is extreme. When an enemy is stunned and gets this buff, she can do some absurd damage. Some seriously, massively absurd damage. It is crazy how much damage she can do with that. Especially if you burst on a stunned enemy. This is where Punish Frame starts looking very, very enticing. You'll easily hit soft caps, and done correctly, you can shoot way past them. So there you go. But the second ability, everybody gets an increased mode gauge reduction. It's not like a flat one like Gilgamesh's ability that drains the bar directly. It just, like, say a hit would deal like 50 points to a mode gauge. This is just an example. Then it'll just do like say 75 instead of 50, something like that. That's just an example. It's not actual numbers though. What Gilgamesh did was just drain the bar directly, so it's like whatever was left, it'd say like 900 points of rage bar left, then she just took out like 20% of it. So yeah, you kind of get the idea why direct drain is better than this, but she still has this. But third ability, 4 to 5 times damage to raging enemies, can be a pretty strong nuke, but they gotta be raging. If they're not raging, it's a 1 times nuke. Her mastery abilities, I don't think you're going to use, but they can be helpful. So it all depends. But her first one, guaranteed double attack for herself. So it's just like the one ability where it's like you're going to combo for sure. You're going to double or triple attack. There is no single. The second one raises the damage limit for all allies. This can actually be pretty helpful because damage limits are basically soft caps. They're not hard caps, they're soft caps, but and this increases those soft caps. Because when you hit the soft cap, damage decays quite a bit, so it can get pretty tricky to get past those soft caps. This just ups the soft caps entirely. You may end up using this, but generally most people use this line of soul, use the next one, which is the 100 MP ability, where it's just going to massively spike everybody's damage for like the next 5 attacks they do, I do believe. So yeah, and it is in Punish Frame, just like that stun one. Only it just doesn't care about the mode gauge. It's just going to spike the crap out of their damage. So you're definitely going to use that 100 MP one, and it's definitely going to be good with the next one in the line, which is Hector. So there you go. But into her weapons, honestly, I don't think her weapons really all that good. There's just some stuff that's decent, but it doesn't translate too well into Hector's weapons either. But either weapon, when she bursts, is going to do an extra 40% of whatever burst damage she did to enemies. So there you go. The HP weapon is going to basically increase the damage to raging enemies, along with the mode gauge reduction. So that will make that a little bit more powerful. But the elemental one is probably the one you're going to go for, which will make the first ability nuke, where it's like the 4 to 5 times multiplier, it'll just go twice on enemies that's raging. So the elemental one is probably going to be the one you do, because that's when it's going to make her nuke way stronger, and it translates into Hector's weapons better. So there you go. But anyways, I'm going to cut this a little bit short because this is like already an hour. And I really do have to go into details with all those different souls. So there's 20 more souls on the way. There's the other half of the A class that I got to go through, and then like 15 S class because they added like 5 more. So anyways, that's it for part 1. Be sure to check out part 2 if you're curious about the S class souls, or if there's one of the A class that you missed that I missed or something like that. So there you go. But anyways, that's all for this. More will come soon, and take care.